So I bought this guitar, $800. And I promise you, 99.9999% of you have never seen this thing right here. And it's kind of a crazy story, so let me tell you what happened. You see, this actually all started a few years ago when I was living in Pennsylvania. I was at this church with this really good guitar player. I loved his playing, I loved his tone, but even more than that, I was very intrigued by this one guitar that he always seemed to bring out. It was clearly very Strat inspired, but I could see from the headstock that this was not a Fender. You see, this guitar, it was called a Carvin, and since I had never really heard of it before, I decided to start doing some more investigative journalism and found that they were this California-based company that had actually been making guitars since long before I was born, and they seemed to have quite a few fans. And since I had only played a select few on a very small handful of occasions at guitar stores, I knew that I couldn't really call myself one. But at an instant, I knew there was a slight chance that all of that could change. You see, earlier this week, I was looking through a couple of used sections online and happened to find one from this guitar store in town that I realized I had been to a few times. So I said, what the heck, let me see what they got going on. And as I'm looking through, I see it. It was this HSS Strat style body with this absolutely beautiful tortoiseshell pickguard, gold hardware. And as I scrolled towards the top of the page, the listing said late 90s, early 2000s Carvin Bolt. And I knew that this was about to be that big moment. All these fantasies just started to play throughout my head. It was gonna be like the day I found my pink Telly, that guitar over there, my favorite guitar that I've ever owned. This story of me going into this random guitar shop, finding this $500 guitar that just changed everything for me. I was gonna make videos about it. I mean, I even already had the title picked out. Imagine this, the best $500 that I've ever spent. I mean, I was ready. So ready, in fact, that when the day finally comes, I wake up, get everything done that I need to get done, and I immediately, as soon as possible, head over to the store. And on the way there, I'm calling some of my different friends like, hey, I'm on the way to this store. I'm gonna try and buy this guitar. It's called a Carvin. Have you ever heard of them? I had seen them from years before, and I think today is actually gonna be the day. So as I walk into the store and see all of these beautiful guitars, and the clerk looks at me, who was very, very nice, and he's like, hey, would you want to play any of these and plug in? And we see this tweed basement. He was like, you want to go through this? And I was like, absolutely. I grab the Carvin Bolt, I plug it in, and I'm all ready to have like my big moment. And I finally get to hear this thing for the first time, and hear it I did. And as I continue playing this thing, I start to notice one like small, tiny little problem. I realized I don't actually like it. Now, take all of that with a grain of salt. It's not that this was particularly something I would label as a bad guitar. It was just a $500 20-year-old guitar that felt and sounded like a $500 20-year-old guitar. I'm sure that Carvin and I guess Kiesel now makes great guitars, but this one in particular definitely wasn't the one. So I decided to put it back on the rack, and I was kind of super sad because I was like, man, I really thought this Carvin was gonna be the one. And as I'm putting this thing back on the rack, I'm like, heck, I got a little time before a meeting I have to go to. Let me see what else they got. And they had this thin line that really caught my eye, and a lot of these other weird guitars that I had seen before. They had some old Supros and some Harmonies, like a lot of this stuff. But amongst all of those, there was one in particular that very much caught my attention. Kind of like that girl did with Charlie Puth. It was this orange guitar, and similar to the Carvin, had like this tortoiseshell pickguard. And I'd also seen it on the listing like a couple days before, so I thought to myself, what the heck, let me plug this thing in, see what it can do. And the second that I do, I thought to myself, this thing right here. So I finished playing this guitar, and I go up to the clerk and I'm like, dude, tell me about this thing. And he goes, oh yeah, That's a nice one. He says that there's this guitar player in town. His name is George Bradfute. He makes these crazy parts guitars. Sometimes he even uses weird pickups from like Croatia, but basically he makes these guitars and he brings them sometimes to the store and they sell them. I say to him, that's so sick, and also I'll take it. So I pay for it and I walk out of the store, and as I'm walking out of the store and driving back home, I have this thought like, what if it's just the adrenaline? What if I get home and I absolutely hate this thing? What if it's the biggest letdown I've had in a while? Well, fortunately for me, that didn't happen, and I want to tell you why, because it was for more than just one reason. The first of which being what this guy actually put into these guitars, which is really big because I've had a lot of general apprehension about parts or parts caster guitars before. This one in particular having an XGP body, which as I looked it up are apparently these recreations of some of these classic bodies from the 50s and 60s. But that wasn't even where it stopped, because this guitar also had Godot tuners and an all parts rosewood neck, which turned out to be my second or maybe even my third favorite thing about this guitar, because I knew I wasn't really gonna have my like do or die moments with this guitar until I actually felt it in my hand, saw what these pickups sounded like, saw what the whole thing sounded and felt like as a whole outside of that guitar store once I brought it in here. And that's where, with the help of some friends, like, I really went to work.
I mean, when you really think about it, dude, any Fender guitar is like, this is the parts guitar. That was kind of like the whole point of it. Like back in the day, you really had Gibson and Fender. They were both competitors. Gibson kind of took the more traditional route of building guitars, where like Fender was more of like the innovative, like, all right, let's kind of put a slab body, throw on a neck. You know, from a guy who doesn't even know what a guitar really was, you know, and just took it out to players in clubs and stuff like that, and that's how it got developed. Who was there something on the tag about who made it?
Yeah, it's this guy in town. He's a session player. Apparently his name is George Bradfute.
Dude, sounds good. The pickups do sound good on this. Were these hand wound, or were these like, did he buy them?
So Sean's big question, as well as my big question, figuring out the overall sound of this thing, especially knowing that it's a parts caster guitar, is like, what the heck did this guy George Bradfute actually put in here? And one of the really cool things that really helped me is that when I was buying this guitar, the clerk actually started to take out a pen. He took out a yellow piece of paper and he's like, I'm just gonna write down for you everything that I know is in this guitar. And when it came to the pickups, he wrote down GFS pickups. And for better or for worse, when it comes to tellies, especially for a telly like this, I was always going to start to compare it to my pink one, which is like my gold standard, my favorite guitar that I've ever owned. And in just A-Bing them back and forth, and once we were jamming with them, one of the conclusions that we kept coming to is just how bassy the neck pickup on this is compared to the other tellies that we were playing. Came to the middle of the bridge positions, it wasn't as drastic of a difference, but it still did take some getting used to, and like figuring out what this thing actually sounds like. Especially when it came to the middle position, sometimes it felt like I almost had to force myself to go there when we were A-B'ing it with the other telly, because I was just so captivated by the neck. But once I did, I was like, okay, this is definitely one of those things still just with tellies in general that I need to learn to more utilize on a regular basis. Position, it was definitely a similar thing in terms of experimentation and being like, okay, does this thing get twangy like all of my other tellies? What is this thing supposed to be? And especially when it came to the drive, this was definitely the first time I really started to crank things and be like, okay, let's see what you can do, bridge What I most appreciate about a guitar like this and guitars like these is that going into the unknown is one of the few times where you're really going to get to experience like that true blank canvas. Because even with guitars like LSL and Nash and some of these more boutique brands that aren't necessarily as big as the Fenders or the Gibsons, you're still going in, whether that be good or whether that be bad, whether that be great or whether that be awful. Having heard most of the time what people have said about those guitars, very few times I feel like do you get to experience a guitar in this completely new fashion, and I feel like I don't want to take that for granted. It's the way that I discovered my pink Telly, which is my favorite guitar that I've ever owned and the only guitar that I would never ever sell. And it's the way that you discover guitars like these, a George Bradfute, someone who I didn't even know about 2 days ago, and now I'm like really excited to be in the weeds of experimentation and figuring out why this guy did what he did and how I'm going to utilize these different sounds and these different choices and just how it compares to what I'm used to with some of the bigger brands. And there still is that apprehension of knowing this isn't a Fender, this isn't a GNL. I don't really know some of the certainty and some of the resale value that comes from not choosing like a parts caster, but you also have a completely different story and a completely different take on one of the more legendary guitars of all time. So George Bradfute, if you're out there, I salute you. But I don't really think it matters what I think. What matters is what you think. So please let me know, what did you think of this $800 guitar that I bought this week? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What do you think of parts casters as a whole? Please let me know in the comments. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I really love it when gear like surprises me. You know, Fender comes out with some new guitar, Gibson comes out with some new guitar, but then there's gear like this that doesn't just surprise me, but takes me completely out of my element, because this is something that I had never even heard of before. But if you want to check out the George Bradfute guitars, I don't actually know where to find them, but I'll try and find them, put the links in the description. But if you want to know about any of the other gear that I use in this video, like the Quad Cortex, I'll have all of the links down below. Make sure to check them out. It's one of the best ways to support the channel if that's something you want to do. Or if you're just curious about any of the other gear that we use in this video, make sure to check out those links. Also, thank you so much to Sean for being a part of this. I really appreciate it. Great friend. Make sure to check out his stuff. I'll have it down below. Like and subscribe if you had a good time. Most importantly, like most important of all, have a fantastic night.